Is it an expensive sport?
I'm going to say not. I mean, there is a cost involved, but let's say compared to hockey, where if you get into AA or AAA or even single A or even house league, I mean, there's ice time, equipment in hockey. My son played house league hockey every year. Hockey equipment, he'd grow out of it. It was another $500. I traded in another $500. I bought him decent equipment, but I mean, it was compared to that, a set of golf clubs, you probably would go through maybe two, depending what age they start. Let's say they started at age 6, 7, 8. You're probably going to go through 3 sets of clubs by the time you reach 15. By the time you're 15, you can pretty well hit adult clubs, unless, of course, you haven't gone through a growth spurt. But the initial cost of a set of junior golf clubs is likely not much more than, for that youngest age, 6, 7, 8, it's not much more than $100.
So
that's not
cheaper than a pair of skates.
Yes, and memberships at some of the courses, we're a private enterprise. We do charge a little bit more at our courses, more in the $300 or $350 range. Although at Pine Grove and Stonehill, I think they're like $175, $200, which is what we're lively is. That's not a lot of money in the scheme of things. And for that, I mean, you could play every day, all summer long. I mean, you could net out your average round to under $5 probably, or $3, if you played a lot. So there's no restriction as to how many days you can play. So in that regard, it's an inexpensive sport. Where with hockey, there's tournaments, there's traveling, there's the equipment is and the ice time. I mean, these buildings don't come cheap, to operate. So I mean, we have our operation, but we like to see kids on the golf course. It's great for the future of the sport.
What are the biggest barriers for young kids getting into golf? It's not any more expensive than playing most other sports. Maybe soccer might not be quite as expensive as you don't need the outlay of equipment, but I mean, a good pair of skates will get you a good set of golf clubs for a junior.
Sure. Yeah. Even I think skates would be more expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can find a $100 pair of skates anywhere these days.
Once you get to be 12, 13, 14, you probably can't find it.
They're probably $300 pairs. And hockey sticks.
And the sticks.
Like the price of a hockey stick is probably the price of a set of golf clubs. And God knows how long that's going to last you, because that thing could break in your second game.
So cost really isn't a huge barrier. Are you satisfied with the number of kids that are coming out?
No. I'd like to see a lot more. And again, I will blame ourselves. I mean, we need to promote it more on our end. We do have a number of programs in place, but we just have to find new ways to get kids involved in the sport. Callaway Golf has this program called Golf in Schools, and it's meant so that kids would be trained in school, in the wintertime, so that they're prepared, once the summer gets here. As I said, today it's different. There's just so many things for kids to do. And golf does take up a lot of time. If you want to play 18 holes, it's an all-day type of thing. It's not like you're going out to play a 1 or 2 hour hockey game. You can only play hockey for an hour, so
that's right.
You can only play soccer for an hour, so it's not 4 or 5 hours, and that takes up a lot of time. So I think time has always been a major factor there. And again, the social aspect of it. Again, you've got to make sure that there's a large. Their friends have to play. There are, you buy somebody a membership, they're not going to use it. I've seen it time and time again over the years. I've been around a long time, and I've seen it time and time again where they buy a membership and the kid plays 2 or 3 times all year, and that's it. Because nobody's going to go out and stand around by themselves unless they're a real extrovert and they don't mind playing with adults or other, and just joining up with anybody. But not a lot of kids will do that. They just as soon lounge around and do nothing at home, or hang out with their friends at the mall or whatever. They want to be where their friends are, and so to me, those are the 2 big factors. There are 3 factors. As I said, it's time, what their friends are doing, and there's just so much going on with young people these days.
Is it a tough game to learn? I'm an adult. you can sure forget a lot when you don't play a lot. But is it a tough game to learn? Because I mean, I can remember the first years trying to play golf. I mean, it was, you know, it was painful the first few times we were out there playing, and especially if you're playing with somebody that is that much better than you.
Yeah.
And it'd be like me playing with you. You'd be waiting all day while I was retrieving golf balls in the rough and the water. But is it a tough game to learn?
It can be. It's certainly a lot easier to learn it when you're young and flexible, and especially if you're open-minded to learn it the correct way. And as you do get older, like you know, I've been playing golf for pretty well 50 years, you know, and I still get frustrated with it. I mean, I can play all right, but you know, I'd still like to play better than I do. But that's the challenge of the sport, and that's the game. I mean, it's that thrill of hitting the ball exactly the way you want to, making that long putt, chipping it in. You know, it's, you know, I just, you know, I love that, and just being out in the sun. And you know, nothing more I enjoy than to go to the back of the range by myself, chip balls back and forth, and then hit balls working on my swing. That to me is, that's heaven on earth, man. I enjoy that, just to be able to control the flight of the ball and try to work on what I want to do. And but it's a tough sport for the average person, especially for an adult to take up the sport. It's, you know, depends on what you want to get out of it. I mean, you know, if you're trying to be really good, you could get, you know, frustrated. I mean, we get new golfers every year, but we lose some golfers every year. You know, because, you know, but you can't be good at it by playing once every month. You won't improve at all. I mean, you have to get on a regular basis, and you will see some consistency. You will see some improvement. You know, practice and playing is what it's at.
I was going to say, do you emphasize with juniors that they do have to practice, that the driving range and the putting greens should be part of their experience?
Yeah. Well, again, I don't teach. I'm assuming Tom would do that and Scott Burns.
But you have taught.
Yeah, I have in the past, yes, for sure. I actually had a team. Back when my son was a junior, which is like 10 years ago, or 8 years ago, I guess. Back then, I took a team of 6 or 7 juniors and worked with them to try to get them, you know, to improve their games. You know, I worked with them one-on-one, didn't charge them, and just had some fun with them. And one of the things was, you know, practice. I gave them practice time here. You know, that's what, you know, if you really want to get good at it, you have to practice. Just like anything else. If you want to be a good hockey player, you got to play it. You know, you got to practice it. Practice your slap shot. Work on, you know, kids working in their yards, firing a ball in or a puck into a net or onto a board or something, or a kid wanting to be a good pitcher, you know, throwing a ball into a tire or something, you know, to get his target. I mean, all that stuff. It's just like anything else. If you want to be good at it, you have to practice. I mean, one thing I respect is the Olympians. You know, here they are working their butt off for, let's say, the 2012 Olympics,
right.
And others are targeting the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Like next year, the Olympics are in London. So they're working today in 2011 for something that's 5 years down the road. You know, working, practicing. You know, putting everything in place so that hopefully they can win a medal. You know, not even any money involved here. Although I think sometimes the government does subsidize you to a certain degree, but. Anyway, but that's the way that these people work. You know, I have a lot of respect for them, you know, for the amount of the time they put into it.
The interesting thing about golf is that you tend to think in terms of playing around as playing the game, playing the sport. And even myself growing up, I mean, driving ranges and putting greens, I never considered going to the driving range to practice. And yet, when you look at all other sports, they practice as much as they play.
Yeah.
And in golf, I mean, you may take out your driver 6 or 7 times in a round, and if you haven't practiced prior to the round, you could be running into all kinds of frustration. I know from personal experience. but this whole idea of spending time on the driving range and practicing in the bunkers before you actually go out and have to take a shot in a bunker. It's something that you often don't consider as part of the game of golf, unless you're at your level. It's like, okay, we've got a tee time at 9:15. Let's make sure we're there by 9:10, so we can run out there and get onto the course with no warm-ups. Do you try and impress, and when you were doing it, do you try and impress upon juniors that part of the golf experience is being warmed up and taking a few swings and getting used to the putting and that? Like, do you tell them that's part of the experience?
Like if I'm playing in a serious event, I absolutely. And if I'm just going for a casual game, just to have fun with the guys, I might not have time or bother to take the time to go warm up, hit a few balls, hit a few putts. But if I'm playing an event, and I just played an event on the weekend, I make sure I'm there an hour ahead of time. 2 hit balls for half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hit a few putts, short and long, to get the feel of the greens. So that's important if you're in a serious competitive side. But I will say this about golf again, it is tough in that there are so many aspects of it. There's the driving, then the fairways, then the hybrids, and the irons, and then the chipping, and then the sand shots, and then the putting, and the pitch shots, and the lob shots, and everything in between, the putt shots, and the wind, and the trees, and the water. So, I'm not making it sound overly difficult, but I like the challenge of it. It's just, it fascinates me.
Kids would eat it up, because they're into challenge. Kids don't want it to be easy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean
they're looking for the challenge, the thrill of the competition with themselves.